So I'd like to show you how to do a basic effects channel that is making use of a surround, reverb, and a send to go there. So let's use my mono track here, and let's use T again. And now I'm going to add an effects track here, and it is going to be a 5.1 effects track. That's going to go to my surround main output. It creates all the different effects into a folder. You don't have to create it in a folder, but I am going to. And you can preload an effect. So I'm going to load that built-in Steinberg convolution reverb called Reverence. So let's add that track. Now at the bottom here, look, all our effects channels are together in a folder. And as I've said before, it defaults to this LA Studio, which is an awful sounding space. Don't know why Steinberg defaults to this. It's put a lot of people off trying this reverb, even though it has a lot of other nice presets. Now, when you search for presets here, anything with SR in brackets, that would be a surround convolution. And this concert hall, actually, let's go back to the Japanese concert hall. It's one of my favorite convolutions that's built in here. And let's go to the surround reverb here. Now that's loaded. Let's leave everything on its default here. You'll see it is on 100% mix, which is appropriate for using a track that sends to this reverb channel. And if you go back to your mono track, there's a sends part here. Now you can send to other stuff, but there's my FX reference. Let us do the proper thing and actually rename that. I don't know why I had to click so many times, but made a nice target. So this is our concert hall surround reverb. You can use some shorter naming convention. Naming that just makes it easier to find when you use the send menu. Then you know, I'm sending this to that specific reverb. By default, it'll default to 0 to unity gain send, but it's not enabled. So I have to enable it. And that button is pre and post send. You'll see with Cubase Innuendo for inserts and sends, pre and post also usually changes between kind of a sea green and a blue color. So I'm going to leave that as the default there. Let's do a quick before and after. This is with the send disabled. I am the very model, and with send enabled. I am the very model of a modern Major General. Now, surround reverb is definitely not very impressive when you listen to it on stereo. But you can also see from the meters, have a look in your control room here. I will solo the rear channels in front so you can only hear what would have been the reverb behind you. I am the very model of a modern Major General. And I can tell you it's got very nice surround convolution reverbs built in here. As I've said before, the Nuendo and Cubase version of Reverence has a few different spaces, so you don't have the post-production spaces built in to the Cubase one, things like cars and living rooms and TVs. But if you just look at the list of surround spaces that you have here, as you have a lot of different music and other spaces too, in terms of tunnels and churches and things like that. And these are all proper surround convolutions, an actual space that's been modeled, not modeled, measured and captured with an impulse and decoded into mathematics and put into this. Now it works, but as always, convolution reverbs are processing intensive. It can often be RAM intensive. They can also be CPU intensive, so be aware of that if you add many different ones into a project, and read this guy's manual in terms of how to use its various presets and stores and to use it more efficiently. But that is basically how you'd use a surround reverb. If you don't have surround reverbs, let me quickly show you how you would do a combination of two stereo reverbs instead. Now I'm going to add an effects track. I'm going to add a stereo one, and I'm going to add 2 of them. Again, inside folder. Just going to call them that. And I'm going to stick with Reverence. So here I have my 2 different instances. And this is front, and this is rear. So these are both LA Studio. Let's leave them on that. Don't know which one is which. You can actually look in the top there. This is the front one. And remember, you have to decorrelate this somehow. So I'm going to enable this frequency band here, and for the front reverb, I'm going to push up the highs and cut the mids and cut the lows and leave everything else the same. And if I go to my rear reverence, I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to cut the highs, leave the mids kind of where they are, and boost the lows. But then I'm also going to add, this is randomly done now, this might not sound very nice, but I'm going to add a little bit more pre-delay. So it's decorrelated in terms of time and in terms of frequency to some extent. We'll probably have to do level as well. But now the last thing is, obviously you want to send your mono track to both, so to front and to rear, but they're not front and rear yet. So your front reverb, remember, these are stereo tracks, and if you look at their panners, this one is panned to the front, which is where it's going to come out. But at the moment, this one's also panned to the front, so I'm just going to move this guy all the way to the back. And now, again, it won't sound great, but have a look at your meters here. If you just have this guy with the sends disabled, I am the very model. And now if you enable the sends, I am the very model of a modern Major General. You're in that studio. There was a funny bit of comb filtering there. It's probably because of my random pre-delay value here. You may have to do a little bit more work. You can also use two different reverbs, or say you take the, I don't know, if you take the front one, you can also set its overall length. If you time scale it down to be shorter but the same character and the other one longer, play around. There's mixing engineers that use two stereo reverbs and even multiple mono ones on different speakers with great results. So go watch some videos about that, but also listen, see how it comes out. I've used this technique. I have also used the surround reverb. I've also used the surround reverb where I tailor the panner so it doesn't come out of the front center speaker, or it favors the rear speakers more in terms of what I want to set up there. Very useful built-in tools.